Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 070 of the WA Running Podcast as we record on Monday, the 17th of March 2025. In this week's episode, we cover results from the Marathon Club Darlington Half, the Runningworks Canning River Running Festival, and the Stride Program B, the 3,000 metres. No interview for us this week, so it's going to be an episode of us rambling away, sorry not sorry, where we talk about the upcoming Herdys Frontyard Ultra that begins this coming Friday. Before we talk whispers in the local running scene that could be factual or straight up lies, before we finally celebrate this week's Weapons of War. Across my screen is someone who I just found out this afternoon, whose middle name is Dean. So we've been trying to chase Dean Menzies this whole time, but we've got our own Dean in our midst, Chris Dean Shore. How are you, mate?
I'm good. Yeah, great, Simon. Thanks for asking. Now the listeners know what the middle name is and the pedigree that I come from. So
Yep. So I think we were talking before we started recording that whether or not you're named after Dean Menzies, but I believe you guys are the same age, so maybe not the case.
Really, yeah, I'm not sure. I thought Dean might maybe a little bit younger than me, maybe marginally, but no, I'm that's interesting to hear. Did meet Dean on the weekend actually, which was nice, and Ryan Greenwood. So it was good to chat to those guys before and after the race on Sunday.
Excellent. And we'll recap the Canning River Running Festival later in the episode. So, so a whisper to start the episode off, actually, and this is going to be a question without notice, is a little birdie told me that I believe in 2019, you might have been the Masters age champion in a particular track race. Is that correct or is that incorrect? You might have participated in the Masters Athletics Championships or something.
That's, I think, a false accusation. I don't recall doing that. Yeah.
Oh, so maybe Zane told me incorrectly then. Not you?
No, I mean, unless I've completely forgotten, I don't recall ever running a Masters Athletics event. I've never done it. So I know Zane and Hayden did some last week.
That's true.
Which we should probably mention when we talk about our weapons. But yeah, I think that's absolutely a false accusation. So I look forward to hearing what Zane's explanation is there.
Yeah, I might talk to him later after we do the record then. All right, let's get straight into your training weeks then. So a pretty decent week of mileage again, 123 Ks maybe. How was your training week?
Yeah, it was pretty good actually. Around 123 Ks for the week. So trying to keep the mileage up, even though we had a race on the weekend. And yeah, had a good session on Tuesday, ran a 3 by 12 minute threshold, which is probably the best threshold session I'd had in a long time now. Yeah, felt quite strong through all 3 reps there. The weather is cooling down, which is making things a little bit easier, a bit more manageable. But yeah, beside that, I think it was didn't really have a long run this week, unfortunately, due to the race. I had intended to get maybe a bit more time post-race in the cool down, but I think just decided to absorb some knowledge from some of the front runner crew post-race and also have a chat to Piero Moraro, who I raced with, and I guess we can talk about it a little bit later.
Excellent. So talk to me about the 3 by 12 minutes. So what would be your threshold pace or what were you aiming for?
I think kind of my target pace for the half is around 3:48 or 3:49. I think my threshold's sitting at around 3:44 to 3:46, something like that, hypothetically. So yeah, I guess I've been working on the basis that my 5K is kind of down at around 3:33, 3:34, and then kind of working backwards to determine, where everything sits. So, I guess my definition of threshold, and I think a lot of other people's definition is the pace you can hold for an hour, roughly, in race conditions. So I guess ideally I would be able to hold 3:45s for an hour in a race. And yeah, I don't know. I think once I've tapered for Bunbury, and if I do make the goal, then I think those kind of those assumptions will be founded. But until then, we won't know.
Yeah, and so we talk about Bunbury. So that is 4 weeks or less than 4 weeks to go, and perhaps we'll recap your 10K race later in the episode. But based on the run yesterday
Mm.
and 4 weeks to go to Bunbury, are you somewhat confident in reaching that sort of 80-minute mark in the half?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty confident in doing it. I think yesterday's run probably didn't go as well as I'd planned, but I think I underestimated the number of Ks that I'd had in my legs and the fatigue that would kind of bring. And I mean, I feel like I've been running kind of 120 Ks a week or more the last month or so, and I've been feeling really fresh. So I feel like my legs are good, but I think when you really put the pedal down and you kind of try and sustain an effort for an extended period of time, you find out whether or not the fuel is there. And I think I found that out about 5Ks into my my race on Sunday. But no, it was good. It was a good. I'll talk through it later because we won't touch on it too much now. But I think it was good. I'm still confident based on that effort, even though it mightn't have worked out the way that I wanted it to.
Yeah, excellent. All right, so I'll recap my week quickly. So from a mileage perspective, I was able to hit 102 Ks. So pretty consistent weeks in the last 4 weeks. So a big jump, I guess, from the start of the year where I was hovering anywhere between 60 Ks to 70 Ks. So now jumping to the 3 digits. So yeah, it was tough to begin with, but yeah, very happy with the consistency. Key sesh this week for me was the Saturday Team Tina session, which this weekend was 2x5Ks with 2 minutes jog recovery. Something that I've been talking about very briefly on the pod is, work's been pretty tough since the start of the year. So I've not really had the energy to really pull off these workouts necessarily. I think Thursdays usually you guys pull me along, and Saturdays lately I've been struggling, and that's probably a combination of the increased mileage and work just being pretty full on at the moment. But very happy with how that pulled out. I decided to. Usually I do the Saturday and Sunday runs very early on, like anywhere between 5:30, but decided to make a call to do the workouts during park run down at Joondalup. And that kind of hyped me up a little bit, and I was able to hit that actually very comfortably in the end. So, the first 5K rep during the actual park run itself, and then, gave myself a 2-minute float before going out again. And use the slower runners as sort of motivation to chase them down, really. So that was sort of hovering around that 4-minute pace, but dropped that down to about 3:55 towards the end. So pretty happy with that.
Did you stop to scan your barcode?
I didn't bring my barcode with me,
Good.
so that made things very easy. So I picked the barcode up, but then I just dropped it off, and then did a quick drink loop before starting the rep again. So very happy with that. And then yesterday was the pacing duties at Canning, which I can recap a little bit later as well. Was very responsible in the end because there was conversation around whether or not I end up doing a marathon or not. But stopped after the third lap. So very happy with that. Looking ahead, I am looking at the plan that we have in store for the next 4 weeks. I believe that, the next 4 weeks for me will be the block before the marathon block starts. So very much keeping at that 100K mark, but having a look ahead, the tempo sessions will start to get long. So the first tempo sesh this Saturday is 3x18 minutes with 2 minutes jog. And then the following week is 2x25 minutes, which is going to be spicy. And then we've got another 5K time trial slotted in there as well before another long tempo the following week. So looks like we're starting to ramp it up slightly. So anywhere between the 100 to 110K mark. And then after Bunbury, although I'm not racing Bunbury, but that will be the start of the actual Gold Coast Marathon block. So that should be interesting to see what sort of mileage and what sort of hurt Tina has in store for me. So looking forward to it.
Well, I mean, getting 2x25 minutes or whatever those extended, reps are. I mean, doing that before your build starts sounds tough. So I can't imagine what your pain you're going to be going through in the actual build.
Yeah, I know, and I've been trolling some of the Team Tina guys, and in particular Ashley, and I think unfortunately that's come back to bite me up the arse. So she's been doing a lot of heel stuff lately because she's training for Boston, and it looks like Tina has forewarned that there may be heels in my plan, despite the fact that I will be running a very, very flat marathon. So we'll see what sort of hurt I have planned in April. Let's move on to perhaps the shoes that we're wearing, and in particular the Tarkine Autopilots. So we had Sam Burke from Tarkine, I think all the way back in episode 059. So we were very fortunate to get a pair of autopilots for us to run in. And unlike our previous hosts who were able to snag a pair and then decide to quit the WA Running podcast, we've lasted several episodes later and have the opportunity to talk about them. So maybe we'll start with you, mate. How many Ks have you done in the autopilots, and what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, for sure. So since last December when we picked them up, I've done 360 Ks in the shoes. So a reasonable amount of running there. First impressions were like extremely comfortable when you step in the shoe. Quite not I wouldn't call them pillowy soft, because I think that's probably something that you attribute with something that's a bit sluggish. But I think they're definitely comfortable, and you feel some a cushion there. And then I guess the sensation that I liken it to is probably the New Balance More V4 that I've had probably 5 or 6 pairs of, and the Hoka Bondi, which I've tried on previously. So if anyone's a fan of those shoes, this would probably be of a similar ilk. So based on those kind of comparisons, I guess the primary use for me for this shoe has been kind of a very comfortable long run or recovery shoe, where I'm not really trying to push the pace too much. So I'm not out there doing strides in these shoes, and I'm not doing sessions, but they are a reasonable stack height. I'm not exactly sure what the stats are on them, but you definitely feel you don't feel the road like you might do with a lower stack shoe, or a tempo shoe. So you do. It is kind of, you lose that sensation of the road, and sometimes that's what you really need. You just want to have a bit of you don't want to be feeling every step you take on a 30K run sometimes. So like some of the runs I've used it on, for example, I've it's very capable on the trail. So I've used it on a trail out around Victoria Dam, did a 30K run out there a while back, and then I've also used it out at Bold Park on the limestone trails there for a number of occasions. So yeah, very much in those kind of long run to easy recovery day shoe. And then I guess I've noticed, one of the things I've noticed about the shoe that potentially, is not, I wouldn't call it a negative, but it's because it doesn't actually impact me while I'm running. But when I'm walking in the shoes, like either between my run or at the end of my run, I do notice that my heel of my foot actually tends to slide toward the medial side of the shoe. And I don't know why that is. I think potentially I don't tie my shoes up tight enough, because I like, on a recovery, like an easy day, I like to have my shoes pretty loose, particularly if it's hot, and it has been hot over the summer. So air moving through the shoe is nice to have. And then I guess one of the things that Sam actually pointed out to us when we picked up the shoes was that they didn't have that last eyelet that you typically have on a shoe where you might do your runner's knot. So I think that might be the reason why the shoe is sliding for my foot. I'm not sure that that's how it is for everyone. I mean, at $200, which I think the new colorway is going for, I mean, that's a steal for this shoe. And I think, they have their rerun program, and I think Perich actually picked up a pair week before last for, I don't know what it was, $150 or maybe less, for a shoe that's probably done 10 Ks. That's a pretty good deal. Spending, for a brand new shoe, $200 these days is pretty hard to come by. I mean, some of those super trainers or even some of the Hoka, the new Hoka Bondi, those shoes are close to $300 now. So pretty good value. I think what I would like to do for Transcend is actually buy a pair of the Trail Devil 2s, because I've had some really good comments from people, like including Sota, who we spoke to a couple of weeks ago. He absolutely loves that shoe. So would be really keen to pick up a pair of those and try that on, especially if you're going a little bit quicker over the trails. But yeah, so a lot of words there, Simon. Hopefully helpful for the listeners. Maybe you could give us some ideas. It looks like you've put a few more Ks in them than I have.
Yeah, well, maybe before I get to my thoughts, I guess my question for you will be, so how does the autopilot sit within your current shoe rotation at the moment? So, and I guess if you were to allocate a percentage of miles in a given week, how many Ks are you doing in them per week, roughly?
Well, I've probably got too many shoes. So I think, like I said, I wouldn't reach for this shoe for a tempo session. So I'm doing 2 sessions a week. And then if I'm doing a long run session, then I'm looking for something that's, got a bit more pep in it. So say for my workout sessions, I've been using those leaning for a while now, and they've actually been working out really well for me.
Yeah.
And I've been using them for most of my sessions. And then, potentially there's some other Mizuno. I think I had the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pros, which I use them for some sessions. It depends on kind of the length of the session and the speed at which I'm running. If it's light, if I'm doing VO2, I want something as light as possible. But if I'm doing something like a tempo or a threshold, then potentially I can cop a bit more weight. But the Rebellion Pro has quite a lot of bounce to it. So it's a nice shoe to wear on those longer sessions. So this kind of sits in those days in between. So if I've done my long run on a Sunday and my legs are absolutely cooked, this is the shoe I'm looking for, because I know I'm not going to push the pace in it. I'm not going to feel the road in it, and my legs are going to thank me for it. So yeah, really, it's a shoe I want to put on when I don't want to be running. Quite frankly, like it's.
Yep.
I mean, and like I said, I have done long runs in it, and if I'm taking it easy, that's the kind of shoe I want to run in. But like of late, my long runs I've been picking up the pace a little bit, or integrating sessions into them. So it hasn't been it hasn't been the one I've been reaching for recently.
Yeah, no, fair call. So for me, I've done upwards of 500 to 600 Ks in them, so quite a bit of Ks. And this is just a rough estimate. I haven't been measuring it accurately or anything like that, but thereabouts. I think similar to you, I am finding it very comfortable, and it does almost feel like this max cushion type shoe. And I think what I'll add to it is it just feels like it's going to last forever. So look, for me, it's definitely going to be one of those shoes that I would love to have in my marathon build, because I can just chuck them on for those easy recovery days as well, where I'm not needing that bounce or that responsiveness. It's just really a solid shoe that I can just eat up a lot of miles in. I'd say for me, I talk about having really fat white feet. So I think the only feedback that I have, and I've talked to Sam, was around, I think I get caught up between either tying my shoelaces too tightly or too loose. And because of the lack of extra eyelet hole at the end to do the heel lock, I kind of find myself, hurting on the edge because I've either tied it too tightly or too loosely. So that's something that I just get caught up in between a little bit, that I need to just get, I guess, put in some extra care there. I think in terms of, the percentage of time that I wear in them during the week, I'm literally wearing them 60% of the time. So in terms of how my training week looks, it's all my easy days, it's my recovery days, and because I use my long run generally is an easy long run, I'm putting it on there. So it is anywhere between 60 to 70%. And I'm at the moment, what challenges the autopilots at the moment is I picked up a pair of Nova Blast 3s in Japan, because that was the only pair of shoes I was able to pick up in Japan. Now, I think that's probably a luxury in terms of what the Nova Blast gives.
Sure.
So I find myself lately wearing the Nova Blast, but I think if I was being very reasonable in terms of what is the durable shoe to eat up those easy miles, I should be going for the Autopilots and then saving the Nova Blast for still the easy, but where I might want to pick up the pace into those sort of steady runs.
Yep.
And at the moment, my quicker days, so whether it's workouts and potentially race day, I'm currently using the Magic Speed 4s, but realizing that from a durability point of view, that hasn't lasted very long at all. So now, funny enough, I'm switching between the Magic Speed 4s and the SC Elites, who the SC Elites has done, I don't know, 700, 800 Ks that I'm now using for my workouts. So that's kind of the spread. It's really very much the Autopilots for most of it, Nova Blast for a little bit, and then the Magic Speeds or the old SC Elites for some of my faster days. So that's kind of where it sits. I think, overall for me, very solid shoe. I mean, I don't think there's any, it doesn't have the bells and whistles, but I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, for sure.
I think if you're out there looking for a shoe that, especially when you're training for a marathon, ultras, or if you're a weapon like Matt Neves where you're going to do 200k weeks, you don't want to be wasting that on a expensive trainer that's out. Like you said, I think the Autopilots is the way for you, and particularly if you're in a marathon block as well, you want just something that will just eat up those miles that you're needing to do week in, week out. I think to close off, I think very similar to you when it comes to Transcend. Definitely looking forward to getting the Trail Devil 2s for that particular race. But I think as I head into the marathon block in the next month or so, I'm going to be using the Autopilots. And I actually don't think I'll be needing another pair. I'd say if I do need another pair, I'll wait for when that extra eyelet hole becomes available, and I think that's where I'll get a lot of comfort out of the shoe for a fat feet person like me.
I feel like the shoe is going to last till well over 1200 Ks, I know there's some shoes that kind of expire around that 600k mark and you start to really feel the road, but this does feel like a shoe that's going to last considerably longer than that, and the outsole is actually not really showing a lot of sign of wear too. So great shoe. The guys at Tarkine have done really well in terms of what's coming up for them. As you mentioned earlier, Sam's and the Tarkine team have been putting together a bit of a social media campaign of late with their new Burst colorway that's coming out for the Autopilot. If anyone's following them on Instagram, I'm sure you're getting stories all about that. But that's arriving in April, and they're on pre-order now. There'll be a one-off colorway; they won't be sold again. So go over to tarkine.com and pre-order your pair now.
I think the new colorway, there's only 1,500 pairs.
You are correct, actually, Simon.
Yeah, but then we've got 12,000 pairs of the original Autopilots that will have the extra eyelet hole coming late April as well. So
even more exclusive than I said. So that's great. Looking forward to seeing what those guys pull together the next year or two. Sounds like there's some exciting things coming.
Beautiful. Excellent. All right, let's move on to results. So we'll start with Strive Program B. That was on Friday night at the WA Athletics Stadium. So in the men's, we had Tom Millard, who took out the win in 8 minutes, 20 seconds, followed by Jacob Sato in 8 minutes, 31 seconds. And coming third is George Lancaster in 8 minutes, 36. A shout out to the only woman racing this race, which was Charlotte Pickering. So she ran that at a time of 10 minutes and 53 seconds. She was told that she was running with the boys 3 minutes before the start, had no chance to complete her drills and warm-ups, and got chucked into the men's race, and I think all things considering ran really well. So well done there, Charlotte, for doing that with very little notice there. Shall we move on to the Marathon Club Darlington Half?
Yeah, I saw a lot of social media stuff about this on the weekend. Looked like we missed a bit of a party, but we had our own party going over at Gosnells instead. So, awesome to see. I think we've been speaking about this the last few weeks, talking about how much elevation there is in this half marathon, but effectively it's 200 metres uphill for the first half, and then you basically get the opportunity to run downhill for 10.5 Ks. So we did see some pretty quick times there. We'll start with the 8K. So we had, in the men's, we had Chris Chipazzo in a time of 31:53, followed by Levi Quinton in 31:55, and then Scott Sieber coming in third at 32:28. The women's 8K was won by Jenna O'Neill, coming in at 36:12, followed by Sarah Denford in 37:44, and finally Erica Wilson in 38:08. The half marathon, yes, like I said, some quick times there on both sides of the fence. We had Matt Burton finishing in 1:14:57, followed by Liam Fury in 1:16:14, and then Matt Damassi rounding out the podium in 1 hour 18 flat, which is pretty quick.
Very quick.
In the women's, we had Lauren French, your teammate, in 1:25:03. She's going for that club champion already, this time of year.
Four-peat.
Yeah, the four-peat. And then we had another name that we mentioned a lot on this podcast when out in the trails is Kirsten Buist. She came in second at 1:28:38. And then good to see Rochelle Damassi on racing again, and she came in 1:32:55, coming in third. So we had two Damassis on the podiums, both coming third. Who was buying the coffees on the way home, you reckon?
Probably Matt.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about, Matt Damassi and Rochelle potentially rounding off the podiums at Busso, which did eventuate in the end. But glad to see it happen still a month later at Darlington. So
yeah,
very happy with that. Let's move on to the Runningworks Canning River Running Festival. So that was the other party that was on at the John Oakey Davis Park down Gosnells Way. Great energy provided by Chris Lark and Curtis and the team there at Runningworks. Whether it was the 92.9 MC through to DJ, I don't know what his name, DJ Slim Reaper or something?
Slim Reaper, yeah.
Yeah. So that was very exciting to see, and it was a good community crowd event down there. So let's move straight into the results. So in the 10K in the men's, we had Jack Wills taking out the win in 35 minutes 18 seconds. Teddy Murdy coming second in 35 minutes 20, and Ronan Phillips Johns in 35:30. In the women's, we had Kate Pritchett winning that in 41 minutes 27. Coming second is Chantel Drury in 53:06, and Hannah Morley 2 seconds later in 53:08. Very close race there. We had Christopher Shaw coming in. What was that? 37:48 there. What place did you come? Do you remember?
I think it was sixth. I can't remember, but ran with Piero Moraro there. A friend that you sat with at the WAC Club Awards a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, Piero actually. Yeah, it was he and Radik Zitkowski that we've mentioned a couple of recent episodes. Kind of ran with them for a couple of Ks there, and then kind of took turns, kind of taking the front. And then Piero dropped me at halfway. I think those hills really did suck the life out of my legs. And by hills, I mean it's by no means a lot of elevation, but certainly undulating and hard to kind of lock into a singular pace. It felt like a fartlek, that race.
37:48. So you're still a PB. 2 seconds off, 2-3 seconds you've shaved off there. Clearly we've lied, because in previous weeks we said that this race in particular is nice and flat, but there's a fair bit of undulation there. I guess in terms of that result, definitely getting some confidence heading into Bunbury, which is also not as flat either. So
sure,
happy with that.
I'm happy. I think I've said on the past episodes that I wanted to run under 37 minutes or thereabouts. And I think on a course that was flatter than that was entirely possible. And, I think I caught myself watching my watch. I think that was my biggest problem on the weekend. Yeah. I think I was checking my splits after every K, and I was getting feedback that I was, 3:39, 3:40, 3:39, 3:39, and so I was quite confident that I was kind of sitting around that 37-minute mark or just under for the first 5 Ks, and then turned around and there's that feedback. I knew I was slowing down because I was struggling, but I was still kind of hovering on 3:44, 3:45. So I thought, oh, well, I mean, I'm well under 38 minutes. And then I got to about this last turn where you turn out of about 9.4 Ks and you turn out of the bush, and suddenly the wind just belted me in the face. And I thought, I looked down at my watch and I was like, I've got 200 meters to go. And then I got past the 200 meters and I was like, holy shit, I've still got another 200 meters. So I'm like, I started just sprinting toward the finish because I thought I'm not going to make a PB here. I've been talking myself up on this podcast for the last 6 weeks. Yeah, so I ended up only scraping in with the 2 seconds to spare, but still very, very happy with the effort. Given the last 10K that I raced, I DNF'd. So
a lot of confidence coming into Bunbury then.
Totally. And what I noticed actually was, it was quite congested because it was quite a narrow path, and you'll probably talk more on this because you were on there for a lot longer than I was. But there was also a lot of not only support at the home base at the start and finish, but also the whole way along the course. There seemed to be friends and family lining the footpath, which was great to see. I had Jackson Lemon yell at me at some point. One of our Bunbury athletes, he yelled at me at some point on the course, but I was in a different realm at the time, so I didn't really acknowledge him, unfortunately. I think I threw a hand up, but that was about it.
Yeah, yep.
I gave a couple of high fives on the way through. Maybe I high-fived you. I high-fived Shaff. I high-fived Oliver from doubles team. So, yeah, I was aware of my surroundings, but not probably as much as I'd hope I was.
I think when I saw you on the return, there was definitely a look of pain, and you were definitely in some sort of realm, just not in this current realm. So clearly working pretty hard.
Yeah, I was in a cave, so but that's good. I think that's what I wanted to get out of Sunday, and I think I ran 38 Ks the week before, so like a long run. It's probably not the wisest thing to do the week before a 10K. So all things considered, I'm pretty happy. And I almost vomited at the finish, which was awesome. It's the first time I actually started dry heaving at the finish, but so I know what it feels like to run down the
North Road, the industrial roads on a Tuesday night. No, welcome exactly. To the pain.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, let's move on to the half marathon results. So in the men's, we had Adam Lamb take up the win in 1 hour 16:30. Coming second is Will Clifton in 1:18:03, and coming third is Darren Robertson in 1:19:23. Shout out to Shaff, who ran his PB in 1 hour 21. So that's his first half marathon PB in up to 5 years, I think. So good to see him get into some great fitness in the lead up to Gold Coast Marathon, and bouncing back from his disappointment in Busso, because I think he ran 124 high or 125 low. I can't remember. But training very well actually with Tina at the moment. So good to see him getting rewarded by his efforts this year. In the women's, we had Lisa Tyax, another Team Tina athlete, taking out the win in 1 hour 24:09. Coming second is Amy Maloney in 1:28:19, and coming third is Madeline Naylor Pratt in 1 hour 33:59 seconds. In the marathon, we had Rhys Shore winning in 2 hours 53:09. We'll probably give him a bit of a mention later in the Weapons of War, because I don't think it was the perfect race for him, but seeing how he performed on the out and back course, he looked very strong there and fully deserved the win. Coming second is John Pence in 3 hours 1 minute 28. I think he was trying to chase Rhys throughout the whole race and perhaps faded a little bit later there. And coming third is Peter Morris in 3 hours and 9 minutes. In the women's race, that was taken out by Brianna Loveland in 3 hours 42. Coming second is Tony Haig in 3 hours 55:50, and coming third is Chelsea Topless. Interesting last name, Topless, in 3 hours 56:06. So look, I paced the 3 hour 30 bus, and look, admittedly, I think I started very hot. So my first K was a 4 minute 50, and I should be hitting 4:59. So look a little bit quick at the start, but there was a strong downhill
Mhm.
start, and
Mhm.
I think I got carried away with the front guys a little bit, and then I forced myself to slow down a bit. I think the undulation did make it difficult to stay on pace. So there was probably a fair bit of 4:55s and 5 minutes and trying to lock that. So it took me quite some time. I think it wasn't until the second lap where I felt comfortable in the pace that I should be hitting at. Wasn't much of a bus that I was carrying. I think when you saw me, when you took off at the start, there was no one around me at all. But once the second lap started, I had a pack of 5 or 6 from memory sort of sit behind me. So that was really good. But then perhaps at the start of the third lap and towards the end of the third lap, that bus, I think the undulation probably took its toll, I think. It did start to get sweaty for me personally, so I don't know what conditions look like for those running behind. But yeah, the bus kind of did decimate. So by the time I finished the third lap, there was no one that I was pacing really. So I think if I had one or two sitting behind me, there would have been a strong temptation to continue and start the fourth lap. But by then, there was no one around, so I stopped. I would say that I think my form got really sloppy towards the end for myself. So
Interesting.
I think like just fatigue in the legs after my tempo session the day before. So if I had done a full marathon, I would have done 62 Ks in 2 days. So probably a little bit too much for the legs. So a very sensible decision by me in the end, but very happy to get 32 Ks after a workout sort of under the belt there. So really good event. Very happy with how it went. Trying to remember, it's probably my first Canning River Running Festival. How do you rate the event overall?
Yeah, I mean, I was, to be honest, I wasn't surprised, but I was, it was actually a lot of people there, and a lot of people that I didn't recognize. So I mean, and me having gone to a lot of marathon club events more so than the Runningworks events. But maybe that's my bias there, but I think there's definitely like a really good community atmosphere there. Everybody seems to know each other. What I did notice is that Curtis and Chris had all these kids helping them. Like they were like, "Hey, you need a medal," and so they'd run off to this guy that just finished a half marathon and giving him his medal, or they'd be helping empty the bins and then replacing the drink stations and stuff. So they seem to have like a really good group of people around them helping them organize these events. And keeping the course. I mean, I appreciate it's a lapped course, so for some people that's not everything, but it does help contain the the logistics of the race, and also allows, like I said earlier, family and friends to line the course. They can walk up and down. It's only 5Ks in, 5Ks out, so it's, people could go for a 10K walk on their Sunday and support their family member as they kind of complete this marathon over the course of 3 to 6 hours or whatever people are finishing it in. So I thought it was fantastic. Obviously there was parking galore. They opened up the oval, and so that was easy to get done. Sometimes at the marathon club events, I find that the parking can be a bit of a nightmare. But I think, not sure if I'll race this as an A race like ever. I think because it is a tough course, but I'd like to do it again as to build a bit of grit and a bit of mental determination, because it is a tough course, and like someone like Shaff who PB'd on this course is like a phenomenal effort. You got the likes of Adam Lamb also running like a 1:16 on this course. So incredible stuff. And I think there was enough people in all three distances to feel like you were always surrounded by people. How did you find like the traffic, pushing the bus? Like, were you talking to the people in your bus for the time that you had them, and were you kind of how did you find that traffic moving in and out of the people going back?
Unfortunately not too much conversation, because I think everyone was struggling, if I'm honest. I don't think there was ever a time where people were feeling comfortable, and I kind of sense that the undulation caught a lot of people unaware for those that did the marathon. So you could see people start off very strong, and then even noticing the people as they were coming back around the hairpin turn at the 5K mark, people really starting to fatigue a little bit too early than they should have. So, so look, I think conversation was at a minimal. I think even when I did have a pack behind me, I could hear the heavy breathing very early, which was a bit troubling for them. So, but yeah, look, I think the congestion was a problem. In terms of keeping pace and the momentum and having to weave through, combining with the marathon to begin with, where we were starting to lap people through to the half marathons and those that did the 10K and perhaps walked as well. So it got somewhat challenging, but because, I think it would have been more difficult for those that were running a little bit faster. So whether it was the lead pack of the marathon through to the 10K, I think those guys would have struggled in particular. So amazing to see some very impressive times, considering that they would have had to break away and weave through people, trying to maintain that pace. So as well as managing the undulation at the same time. So no easy feat, and I think definitely a mental hurdle that you had to overcome doing those races.
And one of the things which Chris highlights in the race event page is that it's an extremely well-shaded course. And I don't know what it's like later in the day when the sun is higher, but first thing in the morning, like, it was pristine. I mean, it was 16 degrees in the morning, so it was nice and cool, and you couldn't feel, I didn't feel the sun, and I started at 7:45. And if I'm going out for a run at 7:45 near my house, I feel the sun immediately. So not having that to contend with was amazing. And I think Bibra Lake is a very similar course in that it's shaded the whole way around. So the difference being that Bibra Lake's like a circular course, whereas this is an out and back. So both courses will have their advantages, and definitely a draw card for people looking to kind of contend in these races throughout the year. But very happy and thankful to Chris and Curtis for inviting us along to take part and see what it's all about.
Yeah, excellent. All right, let's move on to the Herdys Frontyard Ultra, which is coming up this Friday by Ultra Series WA. I believe it starts at 4 p.m. on Friday, and I guess it continues for as long as it needs to with last person standing. So let's start with the 2024 results. So what happened last year?
Yeah, so we had Michael Bellman take out the win last year with 53 yards, which works out to be, for those checking at home, about 355 kilometres. He also was the assist to Phil Gore back in 2023 with 57 yards there. So a consistent performer in this event. And then last year's assist behind Michael was Johan Botha, the former South African Test cricket player, with 52 yards or 348 kilometres. So yeah, pretty phenomenal stuff there, going beyond 2 days. The highest placed female last year was Lauren Bultitude Pole. She finished with 24 yards, and I think a lot of people kind of aim for that 24-hour marker. So 24 yards being 161 kilometres. There was a few names on that 24 yards that I recognised from last year, including Kevin Matthews was there, and a couple of others. So no doubt. Michael looks like he's competing again this year, so he'll likely be up there as the contender. It's just how long he can go for and who's going to go with him to give him that assist, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. So another, like other names that we see on the list, is Simon Poley, a consistent performer in various Ultra Series events over the last couple of years. So I think he'll be up there in the pointy end. We've got our own Big Kev there. So he like you said, he's done the 24 yards last year, and whether or not he can improve on that, I know he's done more in previous years, and I think he got up as high as 48 one year. So whether or not he can keep working hard and go up to the pointy end of the list there. You spoke about Andy Carrington there, so I know he was the one that was racing you in terms of the powerlift relay towards the end of the year. Had a bit of an injury setback, and looks like he's back running again, pain free, hopefully. So hopefully he can push beyond the 30 yards that he did last year. And a name that we have mentioned before, which is Dane Sproxton, who's this 14-year-old that did run 24 park runs in 24 hours, I think a lot of people have talked up as the next Phil Gore. So the question is, how many yards do we think Dane Sproxton will do? And how many days off at school will he take off following the event? So looking forward to Dane and seeing how he goes.
Definitely. On the women's side, we've got Julie Gibson, who last year did 22 yards. So I think she was the highest placed female behind Lauren last year. She's back and likely, in my eyes, to be probably the highest placed female there. But we've also got Narissa Waite. She did 18 yards in 2023 and 14 yards in 2024. So definitely a contender. It's just obviously, I mean, these races are tricky. Not you and I have not done it before, so we can't really talk with any level of experience. But from what we do here, getting your nutrition right and your timing, your racing right is critical. So anything's possible. Kate Seaton, been doing a lot of recce runs recently, 19 yards in 2023. So definitely a contender to be up there this year. And then another name that we noticed that's been a repeat offender is Carla Baeza in a time with 10 yards back in 2024. So one to watch in 2025. There's probably a few names that we're missing there, don't you think? I mean, you and I are not particularly familiar with some of these folks, but certainly, there are some names there that stand out to us. Who do you think of those names would you pick outside of Michael? Because Michael is probably far and away the favourite here. So that would be basically betting $1 for $1. Who are you putting your money on to be highest place, male and female there?
I'm going to back Big Kev there. So, I know, last year he did 24 yards and perhaps that's a disappointment for his standards, but I believe in Big Kev in being up there in the pointy end. Look, I was looking at the forecast and it's looking pretty spicy. I think it's 32 degrees on Friday and then 35 on Saturday. So it's going to be nice and hot, but I believe with the right amount of ice, he will remain cool, calm and collected and be up in the pointy end. How about yourself?
Yeah, I reckon Dane Sproxton. I think the kid's got the magic, and he's going to sprinkle some of that, that Peter Pan stuff all over this course. And he's it's Never Neverland. He's never going to stop.
Interesting. And I guess the motivation is the amount of days that he'll potentially get off school after the fact. So
exactly. If I could get Monday through Wednesday off school for having run 40 yards, then I mean, by all means, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. And in the women's, who are you backing there?
I reckon Kate, actually, for me, doing all this recce stuff. I think she's a big contender for taking the lead women's there. How about you, mate?
I guess I'll go with someone different. I'll go with Julie Gibson. I think she'll take it beyond the 24 yards. So I'm backing Kev. I'm backing Julie. How do we say? Well, regardless of what happens, I think whoever finishes. Well, how about this? We're making this up. Combined number of yards between those two people.
Yeah.
Winner shouts a 6-pack of Bix gels.
Deal. That's a good one. Yeah.
Done. And then perhaps finally, because I know we've never done these sort of events before, how would you go in this event with your current fitness right now? So let's just say Bunbury isn't happening. You're doing it this Friday. How many yards are you doing?
I reckon I could push myself to 24 hours.
Yep.
But having never run more than 42 kilometers at a time, it's that's a pretty substantial claim to make. How about you?
I think 24 was probably a big ask in year one with no experience. I think depending on, if it was this weekend in those conditions, I don't think I'll be doing 24. I reckon I'll be pretty happy with 15. Yeah, I think once things start to get hot, the next day,
Mm.
I'm going to struggle, I think, and
Yeah.
I'll definitely be in Never Never Land once the sun's up high, I think. So, look, I think if it was different conditions will be different. I will say the 21st of March is my wedding anniversary, so I don't think I'll be doing this event anytime soon. So I'll be asking for a divorce, really. So maybe one of the other backyard ultras later in the year. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Very excited to see how that goes. I think it'd be interesting because by the time we record next week's episode, it might still be going. So
True.
maybe we'll do a live tracker once we do next week's record.
Yeah,
hopefully there'll be people around.
Nice.
All right, let's move to upcoming events. So what do we have in store there, Chris?
So we've got a couple of Strive events coming up the next 2 weeks. On Friday, 21st of March, we've got Strive Program C, which is the 1,500 metres. And then Friday, 28th of March, we've got Strive Program D, which is the 5,000, which will round out the Strive program for the summer, I believe. So cool. If you're looking to jump in there, do it quickly. We've got Collie Trail Fest coming up Saturday, 29th of March. And then following that, probably, which I believe is the State 10K Road Champs, if I'm not mistaken, the WAMC Bridges Run. So that's Sunday, 6th of April. We've got a 5 and a 10K there, likely to be a very quick field with probably a few people running marathons in late April or in later, in middle of the year, looking to sharpen the tools and kind of push themselves to the front. It'll be interesting to see. I haven't looked, and this probably goes to the level of research that we conduct on this podcast, is that what the new bridge will do for this course, and whether or not you will run over that or you will still run over the causeway, because I think the causeway was the choking point for this course and has been for a long time. So would be interested to see how that goes. Do you know, Simon? It sounds like you're willing to chip in there, or you're wildly typing in the background. Okay, now we'll continue.
We assume the new bridge is part of it, based on no research whatsoever.
We'd hope so. We've also got the Bunbury Runners Club Three Waters Bunbury Running Festival. That is going to be held on Sunday, 13th of April. We've obviously been covering this on our Road to Bunbury Lighthouse series. We've got episode 3 being recorded next week, I believe. So everyone can look forward to that. If you are looking for an entry to this event, there is only the 5K. The 10, the 21 or the half and the marathon are all sold out. So unless you're a past winner or a potentially the favourite child of one of the big families in Perth running community, you're likely not to get an entry here. So, jump over there, pick up a 5K entry and come and join us and have a bit of a party on Sunday, the 13th of April. Another event that we've got coming up is obviously our community run 004, which is going to be Wednesday, 26th of March. Beginning at 5:45. That's hosted at the Running Centre in West Perth. We'll be there in partnership with Bix and Brooks. Come down from 5:30 p.m. to try on a pair of Brooks shoes. I'm not sure what exactly models they have, but I'm sure Raf will give us the insight on that this week, and then we can announce that in our episode next week. There'll be 2 pace groups there at the request of Nita. So we'll have a 5-minute pace group and then somewhere around 6 or 6:30. And that will be roughly, a 6K loop through Kings Park, depending on which group you're part of there. So a good opportunity just to come down and have a chat after work on a Wednesday if you work in the city and, try on a pair of Brooks shoes. Now, in past weeks, we've been referring to this segment as the Whispers of Warp, but in an effort to create our own identity and steal the ideas of Jack Sirrett, we've called this episode or this segment the Simon Says. So this is going to be a segment where you each week will share the secrets of the WA running community with the help of Master Whisperer Dan Bowbridge, amongst others that we receive little whispers from. So perhaps you could share a few thoughts this week, Simon.
Yeah, look, I'm just a puppet. Really, the real puppet master is Dan Bowbridge himself. But thank you, Jack Sirrett, for the name suggestion. We will pay you in nothing. We get paid very little here at the WA Running Podcast. Look, I think the big rumor is some potential big dogs running at Bunbury Running Festival. So I know we had a conversation with a couple of folks from Front Runner. So it seems like there is potential rumblings that we might have some Front Runner representation at the Bunbury Running Festival, particularly in the half. And a big dog potentially confirming, and I think you might have messaged in the running chat that it is confirmed that this person is running the marathon. So very exciting to have 3 or 4 very quick runners joining the Bunbury Running Festival in the half marathon and the marathon respectively. So we've started the research and the previews, like probably the only research we've been doing in this podcast. But I think I might have to message in Gibbs, the race director, in terms of seeing what the course records are at the Bunbury Running Festival, because I think we are in with a shot in terms of some course records being broken on Sunday, the 13th of April. Yeah, event of the year. Who would have thought? I think an event that you and I hold very close to our hearts. I think something that's very undervalued and underappreciated in the WA running calendar. So good to see the Bunbury Running Club and the Running Festival getting some love there. So we'll see what happens on the 13th of April. I guess it wouldn't be the WA Running Podcast if we didn't provide a bit of a Transcend update. So something that I realised this week was we've been on a campaign, and it's probably less about we and more I. I've been on a campaign in terms of sliding into Dean Menzies' DMs to see if he'd be interested in joining our Team Warp team for Transcend on the 16th of August, and he hasn't said no. And I think you and I have always talked about, maybe he's too polite, or maybe he's seriously considering, right? But something that we didn't realize, I realized that we did have Raf's number. Decided to ask him himself whether or not it would make sound sense for Dean to participate. And, if he is thinking about doing the Sydney Marathon later this year, whether or not Transcend would be the perfect opportunity to get some elevation training. Raf said no. And straight out, and wasn't even shut it down straight away. Very blunt about it. So look, I believe it is confirmed that Dean will not be part of our team. So look, expressions of interest remains open for our team. So we'll look to get a place there in our team, and I think we also found out later last week that there's a potential second spot available. So not only is there one spot, there's 2 spots now. Unfortunately, there is no additional baby in the Warp admin group. But it does, a second spot has opened up as well. So perhaps if we keep the expressions of interest open, and then perhaps in the coming weeks we'll announce who will fill our remaining spots. It's definitely not looking good though in terms of the Warp team up against crap. So I think ever since they've announced their team of Jack Crago and Coach Macca, and they already had Joel Lambert. Meanwhile, here at Team Warp, us 30-year-olds and parents are just having life throw in our face, and now we're struggling to field a team. Keep your ears peeled, and if you are interested in joining the Transcend team, just slide into our DMs, and we will most likely take your inquiry very seriously. And then something that I've added as a final thing in terms of our whispers and rumors is, I know in the last 24 hours we were talking about some merch and potentially developing some merch. Now, this will be an exclusive merch, piece of memorabilia and merch for an upcoming race of ours. We're keeping that under wraps, but it does open up the conversation of whether or not we do have merch for sale. I think if all goes well.
Yeah, exactly. I think if there's anything to go, if the response time that we get from our merch supplier is anything to go by, then things are looking up for merch at Warp. So I think very excited to reveal what this is in the coming weeks. But yeah, whether or not there's anything for resale, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's finish the episode up with our weapons of warp.
Yeah, so as you alluded to earlier in the episode, Rhys Shore won the Canning River Marathon on the weekend, and while his race he was very quick, his guts were also quite quick, and unfortunately, on his Strava, he likened his guts to Pete Murray having seen better days. So yeah, not the having been there myself and knowing what that's like. It sounded like Rhys had potentially a worse time than I did back in Bunbury last year. So still managed to get the win by nearly 8 minutes. An impressive effort. So yeah, congrats Rhys on your ability to not only run a sub-3 marathon but also hold your sphincter together for 3 hours. So very, very good stuff. On my chat with Piero Moraro post-race on the weekend, we were having a cool down. He did tell me that he fell asleep to our voices the night before the race. So it sounds like Piero was chasing some ASMR and maybe looking for some insider information into how I was going to race, and yeah, sort out us to help him fall asleep. So hopefully that's working out for you, Piero. I don't listen to podcasts when I sleep. I know Maddie does. Do you listen to someone else's voice while you sleep, Simon?
No. I have tried it once, but I do find it a little bit unnerving where when I do fall asleep and then I wake up unexpectedly to a weird, strange voice in my ear. So I don't do it anymore. I used to, but not so much now. It's too unnerving for me just to hear a foreign voice that's not my wife's in my ear. So
True.
no,
in the bed of all places. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. And I used to live in Balga, right? So to hear a different voice that wasn't Linda's is a very scary sight. I was always fight or flight when I was living in Balga and beforehand Maribuka. So yeah, when it's not my own or Linda's, it's very dangerous.
Yeah, for sure. Now you wanted to mention this one because it's quite a special one, Simon.
Yeah, look, it wouldn't be a weapons of war without mentioning Phil Gore from time to time. So we did miss this in the previous set, but Phil Gore did race in Taiwan, and it's called the Germania Coast to Peak, which is a 177k race where you climb up the side of Mount Yushan, which is Taiwan's highest peak. I mean, we hate hills and elevation. We were bitching and complaining about Canning River and the undulation that was there, but it's definitely not 4,500 meters worth of climbing, that's for sure. So I believe it starts at sea level and then you really work your way up to the altitude of 2,488. Now, knowing Phil, he wins these races, though this is probably a different type of race that he's usually accustomed to. But yeah, just to prove how much of a weapon he is, not only did he feel nauseous sort of at the 50k mark, but started to throw up, started to piss blood, had moments where he wanted to pull out, but instead, took a conservative approach to his race. But yeah, still managed to finish it. Got the job done, took out the win. So congrats, Phil, on let's face it, winning another race. But yeah, you are this week's weapon. And it'll be interesting to see what type of races Phil does in the future. Whether or not this sort of opens him up to the UTMB type races or whether this was a one-off opportunity. We did try to do some research of this particular race, and we tried to Google more information about the Germania Coast to Peak, and our research and our Google searches took us to the event page on I believe it was the International Ultra Runners Association website, and there was only 4 words attached to this event, which was it was a nice race, or it is a nice race. So thank you to the International Ultra Runners Association for providing that feedback on the race. But looking at some of the photos and some of the recaps that Phil's done, it looks to be an amazing race.
Yeah, the website is, if anyone interested, it's germaniacheerup.org. So by all means, go over and check that. You might need to use some translation devices, but there's some incredible imagery there. Showing you what the course is like, and yeah. no doubt Phil can maybe tell us all about it in a future episode.
Definitely. All right, that's it for us this week on the WA Running Podcast. Our socials is WA Running Pod on Instagram. Our Strava group is Warp. And that's it for us this week. We'll catch you next week on the WA Running Podcast.
Thanks. See ya.
Forgot to mention your new best friend.